Welcome, Town of Richmond meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission, Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody got to celebrate in style and was in bed by 9 or 9:30.
You know it.
I heard one of us got to go to Montreal to see the fireworks.
There were no fireworks for those of you watching at home.
All right, we'll add that, or we'll delete that from the agenda tonight. First, so welcome public comment. Anybody? No, I have one public comment. I want to say thank you to Steve, Josh, and crew for keeping the water and sewer going for 2023. 3 floods in 1 year. That's,
Yeah, 200-year floods in 5 months.
yeah, right. What else can we do for you in 2024, right?
I will say a bit of a tangent, that was strongly encouraged, to this board to move the water line, under the bridge and the Bridge Street water line project because the argument was made that it was too vulnerable hanging under the bridge where it was. So we moved the water line up. The sewer line is still in the vulnerable position, and our number was up in the lottery. So
Yeah.
had we not moved the water line up, we would have been in dire straits.
Yeah, that would have been wiped out. Thank you for that, David. Next, additions, deletions, or modification to the agenda. Anybody? So changes there. Moving on, approval of minutes, purchase orders and warrants. We'll start with the minutes from December 18th, 2023.
Morgan, this is David. Move to approve.
Would anybody like to second David's motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Aaron. Discussion?
Oh, I thought you wanted me to read it.
No discussion. Bart? No. So barring no discussion, a vote to approve the minutes from December 18th, 2023. All in favor, say aye.
Aaron, I.
David, I.
Jay,
Bard, aye.
Morgan, aye. Motion unanimously approved. Next we have 2 warrants. The first is our regular warrant for paying expenses, and that's warrant report number 22099.
And you want to just do, usually just do them all
move to
together.
accept the 2 warrants, the
Okay.
flood warrant and the regular warrant as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
This is David. I'll second.
All right, discussion?
I would just like to note, I'm looking here at the flood warrant, Campy Septic 4525. I'm grateful that I was expecting just the job of having a truck there to do all that would come much higher. So I'm actually kind of pleased it wasn't higher.
Good point.
I just want to note that we have a flood warrant because we're tracking those expenses separately. At this point, it's unclear if it's going to become a FEMA disaster, but in the event that it does, we want to make sure we have those tracked separately. Otherwise, we'll have to absorb these costs into the regular budget. I checked in with Vermont Emergency Management earlier today. They said they're still trying to make a determination. There's certain thresholds. I think it's like 1.1 million statewide, and then like a certain amount, like $4.44 per capita for your county even damages. I don't know if we'll reach that, but we wanted to be prepared if we did.
Sure, no, that's smart.
Is there a rule with municipalities if they need to receive funds from FEMA that like, I believe there's, I'm not sure, but I believe like with homes, if you receive FEMA, like you can't receive FEMA funds again within a certain period of time.
I haven't heard of that. I think if you have 2 disasters that are separate,
You can.
I think you can. I don't believe there's a restriction because they're 2 separate events, but
There might be something about if you get paid to relocate your home.
there, no, there,
Relocate your
yeah.
home.
Before it gets flooded
I
again.
think there are some of those, but I know we've had, I mean, for instance, what do we have? We had a FEMA claim in Volunteers Green in 2019 for some of the repair and cleanup, and then we just had that again in this year, 2023. And there's been no pushback, what I've seen so far, that like, oh, you just had that 3 years ago.
I thought I had heard from when this flood happened, people saying that they wouldn't get assistance this time.
It might,
It had already just been an issue, but
maybe with private homes,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard about that for the public assistance.
Okay.
So. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't know if this is relevant for tonight's discussion. What is 5,000 the maximum that you can approve a purchase order?
No, town manager, I can do up to $9,999.
Okay,
So 10 and up is when we have to come to the commission of this month.
okay. I was gonna say with inflation, what's going on, should we
We should.
bring that up to increase
We
it?
should revisit the policy.
Yeah.
I think we've been
Yeah.
talking about that for a while.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
It
Maybe
would
we,
make sense.
Hey, Morgan, I'm sorry to interrupt it. It's part, I've got my hand up as a follow-up to Aaron's comment. I just wanted to observe, and it may be obvious to everyone, but state it sort of for the record. The FEMA doesn't have one set of policies for all the different entities that are eligible, from private, commercial, business, and public entities, including towns, counties, states. So whatever rules apply are the rules that apply, and they may not be the same. I suspect they are not the same across the different FEMA financial programs.
okay, thank you for,
Thank you.
okay. So if there's no further discussion, calling for a vote on the two warrants, all in favor, say aye.
Aaron, I.
David,
Jay, I.
Bard, aye.
Morgan, aye. Motion approves unanimously. Unanimously.
Could you start
Yeah, if
that?
you'll pass them around that way, we'll be ready.
Let's scramble at the end.
Sure, so great. Okay. This is. What's the warrants? Right, we got minutes approved, warrants approved. Next is update on repairs to damage caused by flooding. Who would like to, Steve?
Sure.
I didn't even have to finish the.
So the biggest problem that we had because of the flooding was a tree came downstream in the river, hit the side of the bridge, catapulted under, and wedged itself onto our force main for our sewer, crushing it, breaking brackets that were holding it up. And doing and was lodged there. And I give kudos out to Pete and his guys. While we were dealing with everything else that was going on, he took the time to get some chainsaw pole saws and cut it off so that as the water went down, it didn't break our pipe. It is severely crushed. There is a sag in it. It gets down around 19 degrees, it will freeze, causing us to have P&P truck septic from that side of the bridge to this side. We got right on it. The very first company I called was All Seasons. They're at the top of the list. They were like, "We'll come look at it." They were here within a day, had assessed the problem, had figured out what they needed to do, and have taken it and run with it. It is going to be substantially expensive to fix it. And that is only putting a splice in for the piece that we have, replacing the brackets so that it hangs, it drains out, doesn't freeze, and replace the insulation on it. I have asked the engineering study because the collection system is part of the upgrade. I have asked them to address this issue in the upgrade. The addressing of it would be like what happened to the water line. Tuck it up tight under the bridge. One of the problems that we have with the bridge is it's a girdered bridge. They can't just use a boom truck that will reach out and go under. We have to physically have scaffolding put up. And just the scaffolding alone is in the $24,000 range.
So I have two questions, one at a time. First question, how many times has this sewer line been hit?
I believe in July's flood, it was hit, it had bent some of the brackets. it was still hanging pretty level and draining, the insulation was still all there.
Okay.
This was the first time that we actually physically saw a tree wedged
Wedged.
into the bridge and the pipe. It was literally,
I
It-
saw it.
yeah, no,
walked
I
down
mean,
there.
so-
Okay, so then my other question was, has the water line ever been hit where it is, and is that easier to access?
it's not, well, it's a
were to
little
happen
bit
again?
easier to access. It's still not easy. The water line, as David said, when they added the sidewalk to the bridge, they tucked the water line up there. It's almost 3 feet higher than the sewer line. And they used to hang side by side. Also, the brackets that they use to hang the water line. Also, the way they're designed and engineered, they can take a little bit of force. Where these brackets, the only result was to go sideways and break. So yeah, the water line is much higher, much more protected.
Yeah.
It didn't have any issues whatsoever.
So as you can kind of, you want to describe kind of
What-
Oh,
what you're
yeah.
seeing there. Sorry, I didn't share that, but the brighter silver one up top is the water line. And you can see the tree hanging on the sewer line, which is a little bit further down.
Yeah.
So just to give people a little bit and think, so what, let's see, we're saying part of
Excuse
what
me,
makes
this
it,
is Erin. Hey,
yeah,
Josh, you're sharing like with your, we're not seeing it on the Zoom call.
oh, you're not
So
seeing,
I'm just seeing it on the Josh screen where I see just your face coming
didn't-
from the laptop.
didn't email this to
Just
myself.
FYI.
Yeah, well, I could do anyway.
While we talk and email it.
Yeah.
I can email it to myself, yeah, if it'll be helpful to have the video.
Oh, Art,
Bart, go ahead.
I'm again about 3 minutes behind the conversation. So, Aaron, if I remember correctly, it was the previous water sewer superintendent, Kendall Chamberlain, who was sort of the motivation behind moving the water supply line. Because I don't remember that it was hit, but was considered at risk. That photo is illustrative. It's not like the water keeps going over the bridge or hitting, the pavement. It's what's floating in the water. It strikes me that given what apparently is decades of not getting hit by things and now getting hit by things, this then it does make you wonder why it was put there in the first place. And I think it was put there in the first place because there was an historical understanding that the water would, and the objects floating in the water would never hit it that high, right? Or might do it once in 100 years. So it seems to me that given the evolving circumstances of flooding, it's one of those things where, yeah, what made sense 10 or 30 or 50 years ago probably doesn't make sense anymore. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I was getting at, does it make sense to move the line up under like the water line? That's,
and that's what I've asked the engineers to address in the upgrade.
okay,
I mean, part of the upgrade engineering study is the collection system, and this is part of the collection system.
okay,
And I made them aware of it on Tuesday morning. And they are taking it all into consideration on what we need to do to put that, you can see the line hangs a lot lower. It's really closer to like 3 feet lower than the water line. And so, yes, it could be, the girders on the bridge are really what limit the ability to use a boom truck to reach out, like on a,
the girders are this part?
yeah, the parts that go this way,
Mhm.
they can't drive up, park on the bridge and put a boom through the
Right.
girders, they're too tight. Whereas on some bridges that are not girdered, they can just park on the deck of the bridge and reach right under. And that's why we're gonna have to put, I mean, that's at the flood stage. I mean, if you take where it is now, it's probably 20 feet to the water.
I haven't been over there to look. Is the scaffolding that they're putting in hanging?
they haven't started yet, but I assume that it is hanging, yes.
Would it make sense to explore the possibility of moving it up instead of just patching it during this fix?
I really don't think, I mean, I really don't think without doing a whole engineering study that we could do any more than really get it back to what it was.
So is the
That-
repair going to be cutting a piece out, putting a new piece in and fixing the insulation and replacing the broken hanger strap?
Yes,
And there's no risk that there's asbestos on that pipe, right?
I don't
It would be
believe so. It's a,
post-asbestos insulation.
I believe the insulation is like a foam.
That was put in a lot more recently than the first water line was.
Yeah, EJP had all the information about that because they didn't get the contract, but they had priced it out. And basically it's called, I believe it's Yellow Mine is the name of the pipe. And the Yellow Mine was sent from the factory to a place that put the insulation on before it was delivered here and installed. So all that was done here. And I don't believe that there's any insulation, any asbestos in it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
It's a foam type of insulation that is wrapped with a corrugated
Okay.
metal.
Art's hand is up again.
Go ahead, Bart.
You know, I think this is a question for moving forward, the engineers. Our approach to date, I think it boils down to, we'll move them higher and try to get them sort of nestled against the bridge. It would seem to me another question is, do we need, beyond moving it up and kind of sheltering it in the bridge, is it appropriate, feasible, desirable to effectively shield it? You know, to put some kind of shielding, so if something comes downstream and hits it, it's not hitting the pipe, it's hitting some kind of shield outside it.
This tree that actually caught into it, Pete and I found where it had hit on the lead side of the bridge. It was probably 6.5 feet up on the girders
Oh, wow.
where the tree physically hit. You could see the
Right.
bark and the parts. But what we feel happened was it hit up there and then kind of
Sure.
underneath.
Hmm.
And when it went up,
Pulled over.
it catapulted under.
Well, I would think as well as we move it, we're gonna want it on the downstream side, right?
Yeah, the water line is quite a ways this side of it. And like I said, it is tucked up underneath the sidewalk, which was installed later.
Right, so it's not such a great weight that they couldn't.
And
Possibly.
there's been several people that have said, well, why don't we directionally bore? If you look at Burlington, they've had a line under the Winooski that ruptured in July. And, you know,
Sounds good
so
idea.
it's one half dozen of the other and
You can't
expensive.
see it.
And you can't see it.
If we were to explore moving the whole pipe, would there be reason to expand make it a bigger pipe?
That would something I'd have to talk over with the engineers.
You'd have. to
It's
just replace
already
the
a,
line.
it's already a 6-inch, which is for a force main is pretty big.
Okay,
That would mean if we went to that route, it would also mean enlarging the size of our pump station.
mhm,
Yeah.
okay.
So, as far as paying for this, so we'll have, I think, more numbers at the next meeting.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's
So, yeah, I got,
not covered.
right, so I reached out to insurance, they said it wasn't on our property schedule, even if it was, it's what they call, what did they say, it's out in the open.
Like I
they-
said,
even if,
Our bridge.
even
And
if-
that's insurance
so,
talk for,
says it would most likely be considered property which is in the open,
Oh, wow.
which is only covered for specific causes of loss, flood not being one of those causes. So there's no insurance coverage on it.
Interesting.
We'll know more about FEMA hopefully within a week or so, but sometimes they take a while to total things up. But I looked at the reserve accounts, as of right now, the wastewater collection system reserve, which I believe this
Yep.
would fall under, has $102,000 in it. We don't really have any big expenses in that right now. Going forward with the 20-year study, we probably will. But I was thinking if we're paying 24,000 for scaffolding, it's about a 3-day job. I'm thinking 50, maybe a little less, but we do have 100 in the collection
Yeah.
system reserve.
Right.
So we do have money here to handle it. It's still not a great expense, but no, at least we have a little bit.
Right, so we're covered that way.
Yeah, and there's an unassigned funds. I was trying to look into that with Connie, and water and wastewater unassigned funds are the most confusing to figure out. And when we have one system with Sullivan and Powers, and then RHR gave us a different system to figure it out, and now RHR is trying to change it, and I was like, we're not going to talk about that tonight. So in 2 weeks, I should have a better number for you on what we have for unassigned as well.
Put that on the list to talk about.
Yeah, and obviously we have a lot of other uses for unassigned, but
Yeah.
this is an
But-
emergency.
And this company that's doing the repair, are they just a construction type company, or do they have engineers?
They have worked quite a lot. I mean, we have a list of companies to call that we've had at the plant. And I reached out to the first one on top of the list, trying to find somebody that would come, and they're like, yeah, we'll be there. We'll take a look. We'll figure it out. And they were back the next day with their riggers, and they were gonna try to use a crane and actually use just a rigger, like a tree climber that would go under and do the work. But they said that it is literally too far under the bridge for them to really do anything like that safely. So the only alternative with their safety and everything involved was staging.
Yeah. Well, hopefully if they're an engineering group, they can also recommend moving it.
Well, that's what I've asked, Holt Tanner to look at was, hey, this is a problem. This is a constant problem. How do we address this?
Well, positive note, the fluoride pump is in.
Yes, the fluoride pump came on Tuesday of,
Well, we should maybe not jump.
Yeah,
That's
but-
another.
I'm just sorry.
go ahead.
While the scaffolding is here, would it make sense to ask if it would make sense to hang hangers like the water pipe has now? So
I think, it's literally, there's probably double the amount of hangers that on the water pipe as what the sewer pipe has. And they're completely different. I mean, they're a hanger, but they're a completely different design. And I think basically, if we get, they're actually going to address some of the hangers that got bent because we're putting scaffolding across.
Yeah.
In the July flood, and get the pipe hanging back level so it will, well, not level, so it will drain. Because on the Sunday before Christmas, Saturday to Sunday before Christmas, when it was 19 degrees, the line froze.
has that ever frozen before?
No, but it's got about a 2-foot sag in it. And it also is no insulation. And it also is about 3 inches wide where the tree crushed it.
Oh, wow.
It literally has crushed the pipe.
I keep letting it freeze. It'll push that can.
You fill it up and let it expand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We want,
No, I'm not looking for any leaks.
we want to move on to the water.
you want to, yeah.
Well, so along with the flood, I'll just let you guys know that on Monday, we put 1,173,000 gallons through the plant. And that's basically 12 times the daily amount we put through the plant.
Oh, wastewater.
Because of that, we're gonna violate our permit this month.
This month?
Well,
Last month.
December,
Well, the month just concluded.
because it calculates the amount of volume you put through, and it tells you your phosphorus is over. So we just started putting the numbers in today, but the phosphorus number blinked red on the thing.
Of
So,
course it did.
and then Nate said that it was probably gonna happen. The state's aware of it. I called the state Monday afternoon. They were on board with everything we did.
Happened in July as well.
No. I don't believe we did in July, but we did not put as much through in one day as we did in July. It was more of an extended period, but, and it took a lot longer. Basically, by Tuesday at 4 o'clock, the plant was running back at normal. And everything was normal, which Nate says was, he was very impressed with that. And that everything, I mean, literally everything was working normal. The biology in the plant was good, everything was everything. We were back to one filter. The wet well was empty. Everything just worked really, really well.
So you turn in a report to the state, they see the number, and then there might. be
Well,
some
we
extra
have our
write-up
daily
after that.
our monthly wastewater report that we put in. And Brad's in the process right now of putting all the data in and submitting it to the state. But the phosphorus one was the first one we did. And it blinked, we know we're gonna be over, but it's just because we put so much through. It just puts, it takes we send in some samples, get them tested. And then you enter those numbers in and you enter the number of gallons that you put through the plant. And it calculates all that stuff out for you. I mean, it's a formula it's like almost like an Excel spreadsheet. And it literally, it is what it is. We didn't, I mean,
Right.
But the state's well aware, they know why.
Yeah.
I mean, what.
well, it's a flood. I mean,
They'll
we're
give us
not the only one that's gonna be in this position.
It's better than raw sewage.
Yeah, what is the consequence? Like, do you get a slap on your wrist? Do we pay a fine? Like?
No, it is, they take it into consideration. If they progressively see violations coming up, every month, then they start to say, look, you guys got to do something. Always been well within our number on phosphorus. I mean, it has not been a problem here at this plant. So we feel that we'll be back in, and they'll just essentially write it off as a flood.
Bard?
Just to state sort of the obvious, we've talked about this before about stormwater infiltration. So it strikes me we have probably a large number of stormwater infiltration points. And I guess the question beyond looking at individual households, and we don't need to resolve this tonight, but how we move forward for what the major or most egregious sources of stormwater infiltration are, and start looking at the high volume before we go to the low volume sources of infiltration. And I don't know what the proper venue for that is, whether it's part of the system review and upgrade or a separate thing, but it strikes me it will be challenging to ask our staff or even the meter folks to address the entire thing, because I think that's a reasonable hypothesis to conclude it's not only households that are contributing, but other parts of the system that are contributing.
We had talked about sealing the manholes as a way to.
Right.
I feel that, yes, one of the biggest ways to ensure that we don't have infiltration is to seal the manholes that are in the flood zone. That there's almost, I think there's 12, maybe 15 that could be considered flood danger. And I think we should seriously look into putting a sealed manhole in those areas. That also means we've got to talk with the engineers and verify that the collection system in that area can withstand the added pressure of the volume that might be coming down. Because we don't want to have a pipe rupture.
Right, so what you're talking about is if, say, up on Tilden Avenue, water's coming down, coming down there, and you have a point here you've sealed up, you'd have a hydraulic head that could.
Yeah, and essentially like what happened with the storm on the storm drain on Railroad Street, it literally blew up through the ground.
Right,
Took its weakest path that it could, and that's one of the things. Most of the pipes in Volunteers Green were lined, so they should be in really good shape. And then it's just a matter of changing the manhole covers and stuff. And on Esplanade and a couple on Church Street, and then a couple on the other side of the river.
Okay.
maybe we look at, well, when we look at this, starting, it's close to the river first and do a few, right? Because I would imagine that that's a pretty extensive, review by.
I just got, we had all of them cleaned in November by the state flood program. And I just got the video of all that. And it's pretty good video, and we can, I'm gonna forward that to the engineers.
Right.
So they can take a look and assess if there's any places that the collection system might need to be addressed before we tried sealing them up.
How much silt do you think we got in the system?
It's really hard to know. The water was moving at a lot faster pace this time. I mean, you can see it in Volunteers Green. It wiped out the flagpole and the pedestal and knocked everything over. We didn't see any silt in the filters. Like I said, by Tuesday afternoon, we had cleaned one filter and gone back to normal operations with one filter.
That's
In the July flood, it was in August before we could shut down both filters and only have one running. And in July, basically all the filter cloths were ruined. They were literally silt filled. You couldn't clean them, you couldn't do it with them.
Wow.
You were saying you think that cleaning in November helped it be cleaner water that was coming through?
Yeah, I really think that having the system cleaned in November when they did it for us, helped with our flows and everything coming into the plant. We were able to pretty much take care of, on a phenomenal amount of water, in a short period of time.
We also observed that there was significantly less silt
Yeah.
on all of the fields that flooded. There was a lot more large debris like
Yeah.
trees and things like that, but there was a lot less silt and there was a lot less little stuff this.
I don't know if the silt was kind of washed away
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
and we didn't have that this time.
I know there was a lot of silt at Volunteers Green. Pete pushed up 3 huge piles. I
Yeah,
don't know if that was more or less than July though, but there was a lot.
Well, and it, you
Out
know,
by the
it
river.
could take different paths,
Exactly.
you know, I
It
mean,
might have
like, you see the
deposited there.
current in different
Yeah.
places. It was in a different place at the farm this time than it
Probably.
was like it.
Yeah.
It's a sign.
I mean, when I left
more,
Monday
but-
night, I left about 10 o'clock from the plant. And when I pulled out onto Bridge Street, the water went over the hood of the pickup. I used a little Ford pickup and I thought it was gonna cough and die, but it didn't.
I'm surprised the heck it didn't.
Wow.
I mean,
You went over the
really
bridge
good.
Monday night.
Huh?
You went over the bridge Monday night.
No, I pulled off of Esplanade
Okay.
onto Bridge Street. And when I did, the water right
All
there,
right.
because that
It
is
went
the
over
lowest.
Top of your hood.
Yeah,
Wow.
How
That's
the
a
heck
lot.
did it die?
I don't know.
Cause it's a danger ranger.
Didn't know what to do.
Oh my gosh.
But-
dude.
Well, don't tell Passive that you did that.
You washed the.
That could be why I was at Man and Machine on Wednesday.
No.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Just-
No.
That's right.
It's had that issue for a long.
Speaking about insurance collection.
Mm,
Okay, and then there's that also the water, drinking water.
Yeah, that fared really well this time. We had some inundation into the into the pump house. It did not go over the wellhead this time. It did go into the clear well. One of the things going forward, I really want to find out is, I want to seal the clear well from getting inundated the way it did. It didn't it somehow got in there without going over the top. So, and there are some cracks in the floor, in that area. The design and stuff shows that it's a cement tank with a concrete cover. But there shouldn't be any way for silt to get into the tank. But when we opened the cover on the tank, there was silt on the floor on that end of the well house. And when we opened the tank, which has the cover, which stands up about 18 inches, off of the floor, when we opened the cover, it looked like a mud pie. We did just what we did in July. We pumped it out. We circulated water from the well into it and pumped it back out until we flushed it, until it was clear. Then we shock treated it with chlorine. We got a good number. The state said run a bacteria test. We got approval to turn it right back on. And it was all good. But this time it did not go over the wellhead. But we did take the precaution of shutting the well off on Monday night. So.
There you go. Washed all the cold forms out of the state of Vermont. That's encouraging.
We did receive, along with that, on Tuesday, we did receive our new fluoride pump. That's been installed. I didn't get it in that week. I got it in last week. That's been installed. And the fluoride number on Sunday, after spending about a week of tweaking it, was 7.8, and we had a 7.8 yet today. So we're right, a 0.78. So we're right back a little on the high side, but right where you guys want us to be.
Some good news for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Josh, any comments or?
No, I think that covers it. Just thanks for another hard week of work after yet another flood.
Well, it was everybody.
What, trying to figure out how to clone you. Figure out how to clone you so you can take
Well.
some time off. Okay. See,
So you kind of want to be, we kind of did
Yeah,
A
yeah,
and B,
sorry.
right?
We already, started to get.
Oh,
into
and I guess I should say, over the weekend sometime, we have 2 clarifiers. At the wastewater treatment plant. And one of them has a malfunction in it, that there's something blocking. It's basically like a manure spreader chain
Mhm.
that goes through it.
Mhm.
And that is not rotating. So first thing this morning, we switched to the one that we had in reserve. Had no effects on the plant or whatever, we just switched over. We're draining the one that we have, which is 14 feet deep, and we will address whatever problems we have. I think, knock on wood, we're hoping that it's something that we can address in-house.
okay, good. So that's update on repairs to damage caused by flooding. Do we need to review the list of water and wastewater items to repair or replace? We're sort of
Not really
you're
much got accomplished. there.
inundated with flood.
I think the big update there is the fluoride pump.
Yeah, I will say that we're 999% sure that we've addressed the water problem that we had, the water usage leak at the plant.
Yeah, that's impressive how much you cut that back.
We thought that it was just the air valve that I changed. And then after the flood, it came back.
Oh, so what was it?
Well, we have now narrowed it down to 2 solenoids on the grit screen in Headworks. They were leaking internally into the machine and into the process. So we never saw or heard and it was just simple. we shut stuff off until until we found it. But this weekend, we were at 300 gallons for a day use. So
Is that about
that's,
where you want to be for water use?
that, we weren't running the press or anything. There is some water use when we run the press, but, 300 gallons is pretty good
Okay, good.
compared to 17,000.
That's where we were. Okay, good.
So were you looking at replacing the solenoids?
I have them in stock and we just, if we hadn't had clarifier problems, they were first on the list to get done this morning.
Great. Okay, be able to see that. Well, flood resiliency, we've covered some of that.
Yeah. I just think that it's something that we really need to look into for the future.
Sure.
To eliminate all these problems, and addressing, we need to look at everything that could happen. My biggest fear is that we have a problem with the pump station. I will tell you this time, the pump station was completely covered. When I opened the door after the water receded, there was not a drop in the pump station. I don't know
How high over
why,
the hatch was the water?
huh?
How high over the hatch was the water?
I think it was about 18 inches over the Monday night when I came down to get P&P set up to pump. We tried really hard to do a good job of putting the rubber seal in and making sure everything was tight and fitted well. It just seemed to work. Literally, the pump station went into alarm on Monday night. About 11 o'clock, I had P&P come, and it stayed in alarm till Tuesday morning. And about 9 o'clock, when I finally was getting around to being able to go check it, it had gone back into normal operation. So I feel really good about our pump station, but how many more times can we take the chance, The pump station, the collection, the line across the bridge, the manholes, the water house sealing it from being inundated. Those are kind of, I think, flood-proof priorities for the town.
Yeah.
I don't see this as a isolated incident anymore. I think we need to address it before it happens. I mean, or as much as we can.
So, we just named off 4 of these items here.
I mean, essentially, the price of the staging to fix the water line would be about twice as much as we would need to put all new manhole covers on.
Yeah.
Any of the manholes so, I mean, you look at it that way.
Ounce of prevention, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. And then, so we just need to get some numbers and figure out how to fit this into an annual schedule of keeping the plants going and the water flowing.
Yeah. I think we need to be preventative. I mean, and by sealing it and keeping the water out of the system, it also lowers the amount that we have to force through the plant.
Right. Big
Yeah.
savings.
Well, I mean, then we don't, we're not putting 1 million gallons through in a day, and we're not violating because we're able to prevent the water that's coming down.
Right.
And I hope we don't get floods like we've gotten this year again, but like it isn't uncommon for some of these areas to get water in them.
No,
And it does seem like even just from a high water.
Yep.
Not necessarily a full flood, but high water happens, the field floods twice a year. Backs in, but it doesn't flood the way that it has been. And it does seem like just having like manhole covers and that stuff is a smart move. From the fact that
I think
there's a lot of floodplain by the plant.
I just think it's in New Hampshire, anything that floods once they require sealed manhole covers.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it makes
And
sense.
that's in New Hampshire. And you know, that we're not being required to do it, but I think we should really think about doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we should do it. Huh?
Yeah.
Should we make a motion?
I think come back with some prices and.
Yeah,
we need to get-
I mean, I've only,
Probably.
the price I got was about $480 for a complete cover, and that means we have to, it's the cover and the ring. We need to
Diffuse
make
that.
sure that we're not creating a bigger problem by holding all that volume of water back.
Right. Is that something you would go out to bid then, or is that something Tyler would be?
We could probably ask Will Tanner since they've.
Yeah, no, this is something I think we
Add that
can,
on,
work
yeah,
with Holt Tanner and,
yeah.
and their engineers. They did a complete assessment of our collection system before, well, they did part of it before the July flood and part of it in August. So they visited every manhole, GPS located them, took the heights and the outs and the ends. And now they're looking at some of the collection of, like, the camera work that we had done when we cleaned this out. I can give them that and they can incorporate that and say, well, this section all looks good. It's been, lined and can withstand the pressure. That's something that they would be more expertise of.
Okay.
So,
We
I
can get-
mean, I'm directing it to them because they've already done a considerable amount of work.
Right. Yeah, they're most familiar, and just thinking about the 20-year study, final report.
I just today received the 60%.
Okay,
And I literally have not even looked at it.
well, I would imagine it's probably
It-
pretty massive too.
It is there. On the 8th, next Monday, I am meeting with, Efficiency Vermont engineers. I've asked them, Jeff Ford had gotten me in contact with them, and I've asked to meet with them to find out what we can do to make all of the upgrade as efficient as we can. And I've also want to pick their brains about what are we gonna do about fluorescent fixtures. If you have not, heard, fluorescent light bulbs have been made illegal in the state of Vermont. We have a lot of fluorescent fixtures.
You can upgrade those to LEDs. pretty
Yeah, it's just, if Efficiency Vermont will help us, why
Oh,
not? Take
sure.
advantage.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's brilliant, absolutely. So Hoyt Tanner report, 60% review that, so we may hear about that next week, next meeting.
Yeah, I hope to have time to sit down and read it.
I guess once that's finished, maybe we can make the report available to everybody on the commission to.
And she did make some changes according to the amount of water we put through because of the flood. We sent her all that data basically Tuesday afternoon, everything that she wanted to see, so
Right,
she was gonna incorporate that. She had anticipated having it to us before the first of the year, but she made some changes because of the flooding.
great. Okay. So we've got 4 things to think about. The first of them, stormwater covers. Okay, and then water meters, no new news.
That's on me. I haven't gotten a number back to Josh.
I
Nothing's
think
on
you
you.
could pass.
Yeah, that's right.
I literally sat down to do it one day. And
I started raining.
Yeah.
no, wasn't even that. I sat down to do it. And I opened up the meter book and I said, oh, we gotta read meters. We had to do our end of the year meter reads.
Mhm.
Ironic that meter reading delays us from installing meters, which would prevent.
So I
you
didn't
having
get back.
Meter
to it.
reading.
We had to go out and do all the reads.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we talked about trying to get those numbers.
Yeah,
get
it's on my,
Yeah.
that and
Hopefully the
the,
next
um,
week here.
that and the
Absolutely.
MS.
Oh, the MSK meeting. for the- for the
MSK, I
Water
wanna
service
get
line. We wanted to
straightened
follow up. So the company that did the water service line report for the state, they've mostly completed, but Steve had some questions. We want to sit down and make sure they've got all the information before we officially sign off and talk to them about the audit that we talked about as far as stormwater infiltration in private residences. We need to follow up with how much were they able to do, what more could they do? But we've got some questions and hopefully we can meet with them this week or next.
Basically, the service line inventory going forward. It's not right now, but as the EPA goes forward. You're gonna be like, my understanding is you're allowed a certain number of. Connections that might have been led in the past. And as they go forward, you're gonna be required to change a certain number of those every year until you get to the 0 mark. I wanna make sure we're not in the questionable,
Well,
anything that was left or deemed with a question mark is one of those that the EPA looks at and says, well, it's a question mark, you gotta change it. So I wanna make sure we got all of the right data down. Most of the stuff in town is copper service lines. I thank Kendall for doing that, but.
and that's from the meters into the house?
Yeah, well, from the curb stop to the meter, yeah.
Okay.
But I just wanna make sure that we've got all the proper data there. When
Right.
I went through and looked at it, I had some questions.
Okay. Okay. Hey, Jeff. Data water meters. So I think that includes what we were gonna try to cover tonight. Items for the next agenda meeting.
I've got 7 written down or 6. I'm going to read those and if you
Sure.
have more to add. Review of 60% report, December's water numbers, the ongoing to-do list, update on the bridge sewer line repair, update on water meters, and update on service line inventory.
Good long meeting. Okay.
Should have a update on when the press parts are gonna be here.
Oh,
We can do that.
I
with the sewer.
called them the week before Christmas, and they told me they would give me an answer before Christmas.
Yeah, it's supposed to be,
And
yeah.
then I called them the week after Christmas. And they told me that they weren't open that week, so, they told me to call back this week.
and they're out of Maine?
No, they're out of, Montreal.
Oh, Monterey,
They're
okay.
getting ready for the fireworks.
Yes, they're looking for the fireworks. Okay,
I'll tell them I'll send somebody up to look.
Trade fireworks for
that's right. Fourth of
press.
July, so good, all right, could I get a
Move to adjourn?
yes, please.
All right. I've never done that before. I think it's the first time I've been the first one.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, vote to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Karen, I.
David,
Jay, I.
Hard, aye.
Organ, aye, motion has passed.